Welcome to the third segment of Monomoy After Hours. I'm Sophia.
My name is Michael.
And I'm Cam.
Sadly, this is our last episode of Monomoy After Hours.
Monomoy After Hours is a series where we will show the projects made by the Digital Media 2 class.
For this project, students had to make a 5 to 10 minute documentary on a theme they got to choose.
Students also learned to create advanced motion and graphic effects and audio editing techniques.
But most of the students didn't really make their documentary 5 to 10 minutes.
The first project that we will be showing is by Bella, who showed local artists and the importance of art on Cape Cod.
Art. More than just an outlet for expression, art affects people's social and psychological well-being. You can convey your thoughts, feelings, and emotions through art in ways that aren't always possible through words or actions. Art movements have often played important roles in social changes, and art often leads to changes in thinking or political leanings. Take the High Renaissance, for example. This style of painting and sculpture was based on the focus of nature and individualism, the idea of men as independent. These ideals flourished in the 15th and 16th century and reflected social and economic changes like secularization. A community's quality of life can be enhanced through art and culture. It can result in personal enjoyment, education, and involvement of the general public. In today's economy, having a clearly designated arts and cultural district is essential. Local artists take on an important role in our society. Ashley Bilodeau is a local artist on Cape Cod, as well as the founder and owner of All Points Beautiful Boutique in Chatham. Ashley's storefront on Main Street serves as a fine art gallery for her photography collections.
So, my role in society is to capture the moment as it is in its perfect timing, because it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't perfect. It's kind of the backbone to all of my work. I'm a natural light photographer here on the Cape, and so I can't make up the wave that I shot, right? It happened. I can't make up the sunset or the sunrise. These are colors that are naturally forming, and all I want to do is show you how beautiful the natural world is as it is. And if I can do that, then hopefully I can illuminate something that's happening inside of you. Maybe you can't express yourself with artwork, but maybe there's something else going on in your life that you can't really come up with the words to say. But if it's happening to evolve our soul, and it's going to show us something that we wouldn't learn about ourselves if we hadn't been experiencing it. So when I go out and I shoot, I'm just trying to show you how perfect it is as it is. And when you come into the gallery, I try to express that when you're looking at the photos. Art is important because I feel like it can draw attention to either serious or not so serious moments. It can kind of portray things that can't be said with words, which is why I think it hits people in their gut sometimes, because sometimes words are like a man-made object, whereas art is something that kind of comes from the soul that can't kind of be distinguished with words. That's why we have to look at it, or we have to experience it. What does it mean to me? It means that it's a freedom of expression, and it means that you can express yourself no matter how you do it, whether it's via moving your body or taking a photograph or painting something. It illuminates expression. Art impacts community because it can pull people together that might not normally be together. It can draw from any walk of life because, again, it's that understated thing from the soul that can't be communicated with words. And so no matter who you are, education level, it can take everybody, and everybody can have the same or very different experience with it. I love photography because it doesn't need words to express it. It is what it is. I'm not making up something. It's exactly as it was, and it's perfect timing.
Now we know art is universal and a language on its own. Despite the fact that we all speak different languages, a picture can evoke emotions in each of us. Not only is art comprehensive, but it's also beneficial to one's mental health. It reduces stress and promotes relaxation by providing your brain with a creative and therapeutic distraction. Art is so well at doing that art therapy is a technique used by therapists to assist patients in interpreting, expressing, and resolving their emotions and thoughts. Art is all around us, and most people recognize its charm and appreciate the effort and dedication required to create magnificent works of art. However, it's more rare to see people supporting their local artists. People are often confused about how to support local art and believe that the only way is to buy their paintings. Local artists are so much more than people who paint pretty artworks for your community. For many, it's a true passion where they want their communities to thrive and become a better place to live. Artists are driven by their passion and use it to create art. Local artists, on the other hand, strengthen the community by changing mindsets and norms. Lauren D. Ferdinando is a local artist known for her paintings involving glass and water. Currently, Lauren's entire collection of original pieces is showing exclusively in her own gallery, the Nines Art Gallery in Harwichport. Luther Bates is another member of the Nines and has his photography on display there.
I think local artists who have a history in a place, especially over years or growing up, have a unique experience throughout their life, and a lot of times that's reflected in their artwork. They've seen things for years, they've experienced the beauty of the area, they've been to places in the area that maybe not everybody has seen, and they've had time to reflect and consider and really turn that into something that they can share with other people. It's important to have the fabric of the community to be thick and broad and expansive, and art does things to people that other industries don't. It makes people happy. It brings out emotion in people. It really, you see people come in and look at art and they're transformed to a different place or a different time in their own life. And that's not something that a lot of other industry has the ability to do. And being a part of a community, it enhances that, and it enhances the component of being a part of a community that has a width and a breadth that makes it more unique and wholesome and more fulfilling experience.
Now that we know why local artists are so important, it's time to take a deep dive into the process of creating these designs.
So when I started painting glass, part of it was that I wanted something really unique that was different and challenging, and part of the reason was that I wanted a beautiful view that I didn't have of the water. So I love how you can see through the glass, see the water in the background and the sky, and it sort of creates a window. When I lived in Philadelphia after college, I didn't have a beautiful view of anything, so I wanted to provide a window for myself, and now I feel like I can give that to other people and just make them happy with something that they can stare at and sort of gaze at and sort of create their own view from their home every day. Because I think that your environment that you live in is so important to your state of mind and your happiness and your peace in your everyday life.
What an interesting look on the art. Now I'm interested in what other artists have to say about the community. Now our next stop is Chatham Pottery. Margaret is the skillful potter. She is the founder and owner of Chatham Pottery, as well as an important local artist here on the Cape.
Well, this kind of pottery I find is important because it's utilitarian, which is it's useful as well as beautiful, and it's made to be used. And it's an ancient art that was made to be used and fulfill a need. A lot of steps and a lot of different ways to make pottery. But the basic steps are that you make it, it's kind of, clay is a mud, really, a natural mud. You make it into a shape, has to dry, then you have to fire it in a kiln at a certain temperature, depending what kind of clay is how high you fire it. And then you glaze it. It's left porous so you can glaze it. And then it goes back in the fire and turns into a piece of glazed, useful pottery. To do the glaze like that, it has to be dipped in 3 different glazes. at different levels, and so that when the fire hits it, because glaze is just a glass, when the fire hits it and melts it, it'll melt into the correct pattern in those layers and make it look like sea foam.
Margaret and Lauren gave us a better understanding on the process of creating art. But there is more to art than just creating. Once it becomes bigger than a hobby and shapes into a business, there is inevitably going to be challenges that one faces. I asked some of the artists in our community what challenges face the local artists.
As a photographer, what do I struggle with the most? Well, I have to be in the mood to want to take a photograph. I don't want to be in a heightened state or like a one way or the other, happy, sad, angry. I kind of have to find that medium where I'm just present, because if I'm any of the other things, or if I'm expecting to get something, sometimes I'll go down to the water and there'll be these beautiful waves that we have here on the Cape, and I'll be expecting to get this perfect shot. And if I expect the shot, then I'm usually never going to get it. But if I go out with zero expectation, then usually I can get something really great.
Sometimes I feel like I really want to keep challenging myself. I get a little bit comfortable doing certain subject matters like the glass and the ocean, but then I always find a way to bring it to a different level. Like I just recently added in the sunset background with the glass, so that palette was different for me, more difficult. My biggest struggle right now is having a 1-year-old and trying to paint as much as I'd like to, because I remember painting as many hours as I wanted a day and as much as I felt like, and whenever I was super inspired, and now it's sort of based around his schedule a little bit more, which is difficult, but figuring it out. So it was very scary at first when the pandemic started. We didn't know if people would be interested in buying art when everything was so scary and different and changing. And then a couple weeks after that feeling, we started getting emails from people that wanted art for their Zoom background because people were staying home working, and everybody started looking around their home and wondering how to make it a more peaceful, fun place for themselves since they were sort of stuck there. And we ended up getting very busy, actually, and having probably the busiest year or two we've ever had because of COVID.
Getting to know our local artists, their processes, and their struggles were steps leading up to the bigger question: why should people support local artists? Here's what the artists in our community had to say.
Why should people support local artists? I think people, okay, so local artists is wonderful, right? So I have clients all over the country and whatever. I think local artists, I think being an artist in general is so important. Local artists more so because we are an undercurrent in the community. You know, I don't go out and tell all my friends that I'm an artist, right? It's like this, almost this like hidden part of my life that, you know, is almost found by the person that walks into the gallery, or visits my Instagram, or goes on my website, right? It's like almost like a pillar in the community that kind of livens the energy, and it brings people into these little crevices in the community that wouldn't exist. Especially when people, you know, we live in a really small community here on the Cape, and so, you know, it's like when people go out and find themselves and they come back, and then they bring that little bit of wisdom that they've brought, and they rebuild community as well. So I find that to be what makes this thriving local artist community here, is because we all have that tale of sorts, you know, where we are bringing something that wouldn't naturally be here, or maybe moving in, and then you become a local artist, right? And so you're bringing this talent forward to lift up this community.
I think that local art brings, like I said earlier, it sort of reflects the community, and I think it makes people happy, and it gives people a place to go visit in a place that they love.
What are some other ways you can support local artists? Share their work online. Social media can be a great tool for local businesses and artists. It is now where loads of advertising takes place. So if you come across any local art that touches your heart, share it online. Be more active in local events. Local events are important, whether it's a gallery show, a cultural event, a concert by a local musician, or a fair. Make sure you're present for the events that interest you. If an event does not draw enough people, it will most likely be canceled the following year, so it's important that you attend. Shop locally. Do you need to renovate your home or redo your office? Do you have to give someone something special? Consider local art first. Many local artists will be thrilled to create something unique and personalized for you. Instead of buying generic gifts and paintings, contact local artists in your area and ask if they can create something special for you. As a community, it's important to support local artists because without local citizen support, the art they make would cease to make the impact it could. When you support the local artist community, you're supporting all respective creative freedom. Once artists are able to express themselves creatively and freely, beautiful art is made that can be admired by the community and the world. These pieces not only reflect the artist's ideas, but also their hidden messages behind each work of art.
I've never thought art could stand out so much in all the years I've been on Cape Cod.
Next documentary is by Sophia, who made her documentary on how inflation has affected small local businesses.
Due to inflation, many have seen a change to their businesses, from pricing to reducing inventory. Along with these problems, finding new employees has worsened too. Intuit states, in regard to current inflation, the main contributing factors include the increase in money supply, worker shortages, supply chain distribution, as well as fossil fuel policies. Joe Mama's is a coffee and bagel shop in Orleans. It is owned by Cape Cod locals Rick and Christy Borgia. Over the past few years, they have seen the inflation rise themselves and how it has affected their business. From distributors costing more to having to raise prices of their own items as well. After the pandemic hit, the rate of inflation seemed to flourish. Fox News states, the cost of basic ingredients has gone up significantly, and now mom-and-pop restaurant owners are walking a fine line, trying to stay affordable yet still make a profit. When did you open Joe Mama's?
We opened Joe Mama's in February of 2006. Our sales have steadily increased every year. Compared to 2006, they're up about 200%.
Have you changed any distributors due to their pricing increase?
We haven't changed distributors. We've added some secondary distributors on to help with the supply chain issues that we've been running into, not being able to get certain items that we carry. We'd have to have another vendor help us out.
Another thing small businesses can struggle with is keeping their regular customers happy and satisfied. People who may stop in every day or frequently seem to get frustrated with the new pricing as well. Some customers might believe that this extra money added on is going straight to the owner, but what they actually need to know is that increased cost doesn't mean that the merchant is making more money. They're probably making less money because they're having to pay higher costs for everything that they are serving. What is the most difficult thing for Joe Mamas due to inflation?
I think sourcing product and supply chain issues right now are the biggest issue for us.
What product has had the most drastic increase of price?
A lot of our big food items that we sell, bacon, chicken, eggs, they've all skyrocketed the price on those items. For example, maybe 2 years ago, the price of a case of bacon was $50 and now it's $162 a case.
To deal with inflation, 89% of small business owners have increased their prices. Overall, the inflation rate will continue to rise and cause more problems with a small business like Joe Mamas. At this rate, 65% of small businesses say it's very likely or likely that they'll permanently close. Did you lose any customers due to price increase?
I don't think we lost any customers. I think that maybe some customers are coming in less frequently than they were before. So if they were a Monday through Friday person, maybe they come in 2 or 3 times a week now.
To cope with inflation, 7 in 10 small businesses report raising prices. Have you stopped purchasing or changed any items due to the high cost?
The only reason we change menu items is to keep up with trends and popular items, but we haven't had to decrease anything because of inflation.
How important is it to you that people shop local?
I think it's very important, especially on the Cape. Local businesses, make most of their money in the summer months when tourists are here, so I think it's very important.
How much longer do you plan Joe Mamas will stay open for?
Hopefully we stay open forever.
Wow, Sophia, I didn't know small businesses really went through all that many challenges with inflation.
The next documentary was made by Tyler, which he talks about the effectiveness of Jossam at Monomoy.
4-3 defense lineup for the Bulldogs. Ball's gonna be thrown up the
Hello Monomoy, I'm Charlotte and I have some great news. Our world-famous Jossam Alley is coming back more popular.
Students live complicated lives and it can be hard to keep up with schoolwork. A couple years ago, our school implemented a system known as Jossam to work around this issue. But how effective is this system? One of the groups that value Jossam the most are student athletes, who use the time to make up for early dismissals because of sports. So, we'll be hearing from them first. Introduce yourselves.
My name is Patrick Jordan, and I am a freshman at Monomoy Regional High School, and I'm also a student athlete.
Hi, my name is Sean Needham. I'm a freshman at Monomoy High School, and I play football.
How do you use Jossam?
I use Jossam mostly to talk to friends, because I get to spend time with them without a teacher saying be quiet or pay attention.
I use Jocelyn to hang out with my friends, and then I go to lunch right after it.
But like when my grades are low, then I'll like schedule with a teacher, and then they'll help me out with my grades.
And I mean, sometimes I use work, but I usually just hang out with my friends.
What do you think is the point of JOSM, or how do you think it should be used?
I think the point of JOSM is for like use it as like a study period to like catch up with missing work and stuff like that.
The point of JOSM, I feel like, is to help like with your academics, like give you extra time like in school to have like one-on-one with a teacher, or like with extra work you have to do or work that you have late, so you have an opportunity to do it if you can't do it at home.
Or to like just hang out with your friends, have a socialized period in the middle of the day, so you know you're not like just bored and don't hang out with anyone all day. And I guess you could also say lunch. We have to go to lunch, but yeah.
As a student athlete, how helpful has JOSM been for you?
I mean, when I have long practices and I can't do my homework, I like to use JOSM to do it if my class is like at the end of the day. Like, let's say I had a class right before lunch one day, and then I had practice, and I couldn't do my homework. I could always do it during JOSM since I'll have that class last, so they won't be able to grade my papers. So, I mean, it's great just to catch up on work and all that stuff. It's just amazing.
I feel like JOSM is very helpful for me. It helps me like know like when I need help for like a class and everything, because teachers will either like tell me, oh, I'm gonna sign you up or anything, or I can just hang with friends and they'll help me sometimes.
What kind of issues or problems have you had with JOSM?
I haven't had any issues with JOSM except for just the scheduling, how teachers will be like, oh, you need to schedule now, but I just need a little extra time to find out like what friends are doing or like what grades I need to get up and like what teachers I have to see and everything.
I feel like it should be longer, because like I'm like eating and I barely get done with my lunch, and like socializing with my friends, it feels quick. I mean, it could be pretty long, but I mean, it feels really short. Also, there's like a little bit of less options. Like, it could be a little bit more like, instead of just like shark cafes and stuff like that, it could be like more like interesting ones, like doing stuff and like, yeah.
I feel like some ways to improve JOSM is to like have an option to not schedule and just like be able to walk around the school or go to wherever you want. I don't know, like, but I understand like you can't do that because you might get lost and people need to track you down, know where you are if you need to get dismissed or stuff. But we can have like a little like less like ease it out, so we're able to go on more like walks or talks with friends and everything. And that's pretty much it.
Do you think JOSM is an overall positive or negative in our school?
Yeah, overall JOSM seems like a major positive. I like that Monomoy was able to like corrupt their own thing, like JOSM, like with sharks and everything, like other schools have. But yeah, I think it's a very big positive.
I think it's pretty positive because like in other schools, it's just like you have lunch and then that's it. It's just like the whole school is in one lunch and that's it. I mean, this one has like options, so it's like not just lunch, but it's just like you can go out, hang friends, socialize, study, work, and all that stuff. And also at the same time having lunch. It might be short, like unless it like, cause it's like shortened, I guess it like adds up, so it's kind of bad, but it's also pretty good for all that stuff.
Most JOSMs are either extra help or shark cafes, which is an alternative for people who don't want to go to the cafeteria. You can also do quiet study in the library, but every once in a while we have something special going on, such as a job fair, or one time we had a local band called the Placeholders perform in our auditorium for anyone to go to. We have also had a real congressional debate that students could go to during JOSM. However, JOSM is just as important to teachers as it is to students, so we'll be hearing from them next. Introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Miss Manning. I teach 8th grade science.
Hello, my name is Ruben Bowman. I'm a math teacher here at Monomoy High School. I've been a teacher here for 4 years, and I've been teaching 9 years total.
How do you use JOSM?
I use JOSM. Kids, they come in here, they like to eat lunch. They like to spend time with friends, like to get caught up on classwork, on homework. They like to retake tests and quizzes, what they're doing right now. And just extra time they can catch up, learn, or just a safe, comfortable place to be.
So I use JOSM in the following ways. So I am set up to have JOSM B, as are all the other science teachers, and then students can sign up for different windows of time, but I try to make it useful in more than one way, each offering.
What do you think is the point of JOSM, or how do you think it should be used?
I think that there are a number of really good uses for JOSM. One of them is for student athletes, so students that get dismissed because of our dismissal times being funky.
I think more students should use it for its purpose rather than hanging out. There are some students who could use it for education, getting more practice, getting more help, retaking things that they've missed.
They really benefit, so the student athletes, also kids who are in drama, music programs, they can really work on things in case they get dismissed or have after-school obligations.
But there are some kids who have A's, so they come in, they get some stuff done, and they are able to eat lunch or do activities, extracurriculars, the other clubs that they have. I mean, it's used for a lot of things, and I think it's okay.
How helpful do you think JOSM has been for your students?
I think it's helpful because some kids don't have the luxury of staying after school, so they are not able to, take the bus or not able to get a ride home or something like that. So they're able to use JOSM to get anything they're missing done, and that way they can just take the regular bus home.
I've noticed a huge improvement since we implemented JOSM a number of years ago, and so I really think it's beneficial for my students in all the ways that I already mentioned, but it gives them a chance to just kind of learn at their own pace, and it takes that pressure off of that bell to bell, like I gotta get everything done in that time.
What kind of issues or problems have you or your students had with JOSM?
I think that for 8th graders, especially when they don't realize that, if they don't have a lot of academics to do in the beginning of the school year, and then all of a sudden progress reports come out and they have academics, then they start to view that academic piece as a punishment, which is why I think there should be that gradual release, just so they can really understand what it's for and how useful it is.
I think a big issue is students who are not signing up for JOSM and they're randomly going to places like the team room where they should not be. Also, JOSM like to go to the team room and they make it a mess, and then the janitor has to clean it up, and that's not fair to them. They have a regular schedule they have to keep up with.
And then another piece is just sort of wandering and fooling around. I don't know if you can hear the background noise, but there's been a few kids sort of in the hall throwing some things, like yelling and screaming in the bathrooms, and so my location near the bathrooms kind of sets up a problem because I can hear all that echoing, I can hear stuff that's going on, so I think kids that wander or tend to misbehave, they can definitely get into some trouble during JOSM.
Some kids go to places they shouldn't, and a lot of kids try to get a double batching of lunch. They just got to be more aware of how it can be used in a positive manner.
What are some ways to improve JOSM?
I think we could have a better, more teachers walking around, or maybe somebody just checking, like, this shouldn't be happening. So being more diligent and more, I want to say strict, but just holding kids to the accountability and the expectations of what JOSM was at the beginning of the year.
I think for, again, my students for 8th grade, I think that gradual release at the beginning of the year is great. I also think that there should be more sort of a learning curve, that if kids aren't signing up for things, or if they're wandering the halls, I would love to see us come up with a solution for that, just so they can really use that time for either improving their academics or just being in the location, because ultimately we are all responsible for those students that are in the halls.
Do you think JOSM is an overall positive or negative in our school?
I think JOSM is overall positive, overwhelmingly positive. I would hate to see it disappear.
I think it's a positive just because it gives kids the ability to just, if they need to just get away from school for a second. I mean, a school day can be a long thing. Sitting at a desk for 6, 7 straight hours, that's a lot. So this gives them the chance to just maybe get a little bit out. They can go to the gym, get some energy out. It's kind of like a recess, It allows them to use that positively. A negative, I would just say using it for the wrong reasons, taking advantage of that. If you're signing up for a JOSM to get extra help, don't skip it, I don't like writing kids up, but it's an automatic write-up when they skip or miss my JOSM, and that makes me have to be the bad guy.
An interesting piece around that is that when we first voted on it, I I think there were only 5% of staff that said, oh, I don't want to do that, it's not a good idea. And I was one of those people. I couldn't see it. And now I would, fight tooth and nail to keep it, because I do believe it provides opportunity and space and activities and relationship building. There's so many good things, and if we can just figure out as a staff and as a student body how to eliminate or at least pare down that behavior piece, I think we really have something gold.
So, everyone I talked to thought that Jocelyn was overall a positive experience, but the students were somewhat critical of it in terms of they wanted a little bit more freedom to where they go. And the teachers were on the opposite end in terms of they wanted Jocelyn to be enforced a little bit more. In the end, Jocelyn seems to strike a good balance between being useful to those who need it and not being frustrating to those who don't, and has almost done nothing but good for both students and teachers at Monomoy Regional High School.
Jocelyn can really have a huge impact on many students because of what you can do and catch up on in such a good amount of time.
The next documentary was made by Michael, and it shows mental health of students and student athletes.
As a student and an athlete, I feel like mental health plays a huge role in both school and the sport someone either plays or participates in. Many students have things that go on in their life that gets tied up between their sports and the schoolwork that they have to do. Having to go home, do some homework, maybe then have to go back to school for practice. It's very time consuming. My name is Michael Desir, and I'm making this documentary about how school affects students and student athletes at Monomoy High School. In your opinion, what does mental health mean to you?
So mental health is really important to me because I feel like it dictates how you work, how you play your sports, like just how you feel in general, and it just like pretty much controls your life.
I think mental health is someone's like emotional, physical well-being, how someone's doing, if they have any issues going on, stuff like that.
To me, mental health means like someone's mental state or well-being and like how that affects them emotionally and also physically.
Mental health to me means how someone is feeling and how they take care of it. It can like grow over time. It can be from something in your childhood or something that happens in like a day. And it's really important for someone to reach out for help if they need it and just focus on themselves.
How much time do you regularly spend on schoolwork?
I spend a lot of time in school, and a lot of time out of school too. I don't know, probably like 2 to 3 hours on average, like every night during the weekdays.
Schoolwork is it's most of my day, especially being a student athlete, hockey practice and everything, games. Sometimes when we don't have school, I have to be right at the rink. Even when we're doing work in school, I gotta get right home, get work done. I'd say probably the whole school day plus a few hours at home.
So if I have practice for high school sports, I'll usually spend like an hour or two on schoolwork. I mean, I'm a good student and I take pretty heavy classes, but I feel like it could be less for other people.
I'd say maybe 2 hours after school, depending on what time of the year it is, but if it's like towards the end of a quarter or near midterms, it'd definitely be more to like 3 hours.
Do you think you're able to get work done faster at home or in school, depending on practice times, or if you have a game that is far away?
Definitely at school, and I also think not only do we have practices and games after school when we're traveling, but also I get very distracted easily at home, and I think when I'm in school, it's much easier to get work done than at home.
Getting work done at school is a lot easier just because, like I said, when we have games, when we're on a bus, when we're on the road, stuff like that, you don't really have time to sit down, think about work, study, stuff like that. So in school is definitely easier time to get work done.
If I have time at school, then that makes it much easier because I feel like I find it easier to focus when I'm in school than at home, because at home there's many things that can like distract me, like getting ready for the game and other things.
Probably at school, just because it's more of a learning environment, and sometimes at home it can be a little crazy.
Do you think teachers should decrease the amount of work they are supposed to give regardless of their teaching curriculum?
Yeah, I think, obviously, like, it's the curriculum and you got to follow it, and you got to some extent give out homework so that people are staying caught up and like on task and know what's going on in class. But I think maybe being a little more lenient during like sports season or something like that, when someone has like a game or something, give them an extension or maybe lessen the homework for that week or day.
It's understandable how there's a curriculum and there's certain points that need to be met, but the thing is, like, when you just overload there needs to be a healthy balance. When you overload students with work, the students don't understand it. Like, when you give them a thing and they're just starting to learn the thing and then you move on to something else, like, you just can't learn that way.
So I feel like student athletes shouldn't really get leeway because it is a sacrifice that you know that you're going to take if you're playing a sport, that you're going to have less time to do schoolwork. So I do think while teachers could give time if they have a game on an island or far away, and give them some leeway, I do think that they shouldn't have to decrease the work they assign.
I'd say that it may depend on the teacher, but probably yeah, because the amount of work that is given to students is just a little crazy. And with all the classes students have to take, it can be really stressful.
If you were to talk about mental health, how would you describe it?
So just like we have our physical health, mental health is very similar to that. It's how we take care of our brain, it's how we take care of our emotions and our feelings, and it is just as important as our physical health.
Mental health is an issue that is very important to us as school counselors, and we've noticed over the past 2 years or so that the mental health of students is on decline, given that all that's happened in our world with COVID. So we take our students' mental health very seriously, and we strive to do anything we can as counselors to support that.
As an athlete myself, I know there are many challenges and many responsibilities pertaining to school and to the sport I play. In your opinion, do you think there should be a threshold on work students have to complete for the classes they take?
That's a great question, and I honestly don't know the best answer for that. I think it's all about balance, and part of it is students need to know what they can handle and what they can't. We always encourage students to take the most challenging and rigorous classes, but with that is going to come increased expectations. So a student really needs to be able to make that decision of what they're capable of, what they can handle, compared to when it's just too much for them. So it's really individual.
Well, that's a good question. It sounds as if what you're asking is there should be kind of a limit on the amount of work given to folks who have heavy extracurricular activities. I would see maybe in the future, as opposed to limiting the amount, providing more opportunities for work completion. So rather than carrying, say, 7 courses, maybe you carry 6 and you have some sort of directed study. Also, having coached myself and been an athlete myself, I know that study halls can be impactful after time learning for teams. But I do think that there is a shift going on where much more of our work is being accomplished in the classroom, which should be eliminating a little bit of the responsibility for homework, with the exception maybe of the higher level classes. The AP courses and the honors courses still have a considerable amount of homework.
The students that you know that play sports and don't, are you able to tell which type of students has more weight on their shoulders than others?
I would say sports don't necessarily factor into weight on their shoulders. Students can have a variety of things going on regardless of if they're an athlete or not. I do think for our student athletes, though, there is a lot more time management that they need to do, and sometimes just their physical level of exhaustion, their exertion that they're putting out every single day. So that's hard to say because I think it really depends on the individual student.
Yeah, I think it's because I'm kind of involved with athletics. I do know, having coached sports for many years here, how difficult it is to maintain the responsibilities of being a student and athlete at the same time. The one thing that I do notice, and I think is a very positive trend, is that when students are involved in a sport, their grades are typically better than when they are not involved in a sport. And I think what that comes through is the routine that sports offer, where, for example, you have a set practice time, then you come home, you have time to do a little of this, a little of that. Without a commitment after school, sometimes that routine is not as solid.
What advice could you give to someone who is having mental health problems from either school or anything outside of school?
I think it's so important to open the lines of communication, finding someone to talk to, whether it's a friend, a counselor, a parent, an aunt and an uncle, but finding someone that they can just talk about how they're feeling. I think it's super important to develop a list of coping strategies or make a wellness toolbox. You know, things that when you are having a bad day that you can do, whether it's listening to music, going for a run, pulling out some art supplies, putting on a funny movie, but being able to find things that help fill you up, make you happy, and that is a good way to manage some stress.
Talk to a trusted adult. We hope that every student in our building has somebody that they can come to. While we do appreciate, and this is many times the first person you'll turn to would be a friend or a peer, but it's also important that you get that peer to talk with a trusted adult, because it's awfully hard to, as an 18, 17-year-old kid, try to manage one of your peers' mental health issues without seeking people who have a little bit more training and experience doing that. But the last part of that is see something, say something, right? If you're worried about someone, take a step forward, talk to somebody you trust, and try to get that person help.
Have any students came to you to talk about any issue going on with their mental health due to anything?
Every day. That's a huge part of our job. So part of it is just in our normal check-ins. Right now, a lot of it is college stress. Some people have financial stress going into the holidays, or it might be, you know, sports stress coming out. So, but yeah, students come in all the time, and I think as counselors, we try to check in about mental health too, even if it's not the presenting issue that someone is there for.
How does that make you feel?
I love it. I love being a trusted adult in the building. I love talking to people. Working with students is the best part of the job. I think it's really important that we're able to normalize these conversations about mental health, and also that we give people a place where they can sit and vent and talk about their feelings in a safe space.
Usually on any given day, 4 to 5 students will come in to chat about things that they're going through and feeling impacted either by depression or anxiety or something even heavier at times. But yes, it is certainly a topic that is brought up from many of my visitors that come to see me. I'd say it's about, you know, split between academics 50-50 and mental health.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like the job has changed a lot over the past 5 years. I would say that in the earlier part of my career there was a lot more focus on the academic piece. With the way the world has changed, that has kind of morphed into more focus on the mental health piece. And the one thing that I notice about it in my role is that it's draining for us as counselors because of the volume of mental health issues that we're grappling with, and it's hard to sometimes not let that impact you and your mood and how a counselor's feeling, given that they're working through their entire day with students discussing some fairly heavy-duty issues.
What advice could you give that can help someone's mental health?
Advice. This is a tricky question. Well, first and foremost is get off the phones, you know, watch your screen time. I think social media has had a huge impact on mental health. Watching your sleep is really important too. Our bodies are like cars. We need to be able to rest, and if we're not getting enough sleep, that can definitely impact our ability to function and manage stress. Physical activity, whether it's getting outside, getting fresh air, exercising, that's another healthy part. And I think just trying to find ways to laugh and try to do things that you enjoy and have fun doing is really important for your mental health.
Somebody's mental health. So, if you're out there listening and you think that you might be going through something with your mental health, again, going back to what I had said earlier, is try to find somebody that you trust, that's an adult that you can talk to about getting some support. And we have a number of folks we network with as a high school. So while we're not therapists per se, we can be very helpful with trying to find another layer of support for a student that might be in crisis.
Listening to what students and guidance counselors had said during this documentary, I was able to learn many things about how most people are affected by mental health in school or outside of school. It is hard to mix sports and school at the same time for a lot of athletes, and non-athletes are no different in having to mix in anything going on in their personal life. Advice that I could possibly give is friends. Talk to friends. Try to do something that makes you happy. Or maybe even put your phone down. Try to limit the screen time, because sometimes that can really bother you. Thank you for listening to this documentary. I hope you learned something new.
As an athlete myself, I can agree that there can be some weights on my shoulder.
Next documentary we have is made by Elliot, which talks about the resources that students and teachers use at Monomoy.
Hello everyone, my name is Elliot Brown, and today we'll be exploring the many resources here at Monomoy, such as Aspen, the Monomoy website, guidance, and the library. First we'll start with some words from Ash Porter.
Some resources that Monomoy has, we have food insecurity resources like free lunches and breakfasts. We have clothing, gift of thrift, mental health resources. There's the whole guidance department. We have school employee support, summer programs and daycare. Personally, the most useful resource is the guidance department. It's very helpful for like academic support if you're just like having a bad day. So I'd say that's the most useful for me. I would say that our food insecurity resources are the most acceptable because we already have free breakfast and lunch, so you don't have to put in any extra effort to get free food.
Along with free breakfast and lunch, Monomoy has a wide variety of online resources that are very helpful since most classes have taken a more digital approach.
Resources for students. That's a good question. I think the best thing that students can do is check out the Monomoy website. There's so much information that's posted there. It's kind of a central hub for everything. Friday Focus is another really important tool for families and students to read. It talks about what's going on in the community. I learned a lot just about different events in the classrooms. Aspen's important for sure, as well as Google Classroom. Also, on cell phones, there's an app that students can download and families for Monomoy. And right there, when you click on the app, you can have access to Aspen, to the website, and to transportation, so lots of other important information. I wish that students check their email more regularly. I think that is a really important way of communicating with your counselors, getting updates from the school. For me as well, it's such a time saver. Instead of having to go find a student, call them out of class, schedule a time to meet, sometimes we can just answer things through email. So definitely checking email is super important. I also would love to see students go a little bit back to some old school stuff and use a paper and pen planner. I think that's really important for students to be able to take to-do lists, write down assignments, deadlines. I think that's super important because there's so many sources of information coming at everybody to have a central spot for them to help stay organized. So I'd love to see students use planners and agendas in the written aspect. I also think that scheduling times to meet to check in with counselors is also a great thing for the students to do. Not necessarily a resource, but just to know that we're there if they just need to touch base on anything. So students knowing that they can reach out to if they have questions. And if students have an issue or they need to know something and they don't know where to start, we're a good place to kind of have those conversations because then we can at least point people in the right direction.
Finally, we have the library. The library is a great source for all students at Monomoy. There are books on almost any topic imaginable, including physics books, history books, science books, and many more. The library is also a great place if you need a quiet place to study or read. In all, Monomoy has an abundance of resources for all students, and the guidance counselors are always available to lend a helping hand.
These resources are always put to good use for my classes.
Last but not least, we have Ella, whose documentary is about how healthcare workers' lives were and are still affected by COVID.
All of our lives have been changed by COVID. What about the people right in the middle of it? Our doctors, our nurses, the EMTs, and many more people whose entire jobs were changed. They worked from when we knew barely anything about the pandemic and put their lives on the line to protect us. A lot of us have heard the stories of their hardships through news stations and media posts. What about a first-hand experience? Your initial reaction to COVID as a paramedic who could easily be exposed?
My initial reaction, I remember being apprehensive, a little unsure about exactly what it was because it didn't seem like anybody really knew what it was or what was going to happen. Once it got to the United States, I remember watching the news and seeing things that were going on in China and Italy especially, lots of people were dying. So my initial reaction to it, I'd say, once we found out that it was on the West Coast, was to just make sure that myself and the people that I worked with were going to be well protected when we had to go into somebody's house. And lots of the rules changed when COVID first came out. They really wanted to minimize our exposure to people. They wanted us to stay, 6 to 8 feet away. They were having us let people walk out to the ambulance opposed to us carrying them and getting too close to them. So I just remember just a feeling of uncertainty, feeling like we were kind of breaking the rules because everything was so out of the ordinary from what we normally did. We weren't supposed to be giving certain medications in the ambulance. We weren't supposed to be bringing people into the hospital that were on oxygen or that were doing breathing treatments, like, for example, somebody who has asthma, who has a nebulizer. we weren't allowed to bring anybody through the hospital doors that was on a nebulizer. And they being the medical directors and the doctors, didn't even want us doing them in the ambulance because the patient breathed it in, it was aerosolized, and we could exhale it, and we could all see there. Even though we had our goggles on, our N95 masks and so on, there still is this uncertainty as to how potent this virus was and how contagious it was. So we really changed the way we did things, and it felt just very odd after having done this for probably 16 or 17 years at that point.
Where do you work and what do you do? How did COVID change that for you?
I work at Liberty Commons as a nurse. I work at a rehab facility. We offer subacute care, long-term care, and we also have dementia care. COVID changed a lot of things in the medical field. It changed your everyday. It changed life for the patients and the people you're caring for. We, a lot of the times can't have visitors. We have lots of different precautions in place. Not only was it stressful for the people providing care, it was stressful for the patients. COVID still affects us today. Still wear masks. We can't even have our patients see our faces or smiles. That's a piece of healthcare that is helpful at times. We have very impaired clients. Now we need to write things down just to ask a question. Can't see the faces. We are constantly having tests because of exposure. And patients are still being put on precautions. We're also figuring out the long-lasting effects that COVID has on patients' actual health. So things are still, they're trending down, but we're still affected by COVID largely.
COVID was a really tragic time of our lives, and it affected pretty much everyone's lives in many ways.
That is all for Monomoy After Hours. We will miss being with you all.
Thank you for tuning in for our last episode.
First group signing off.